Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! Jesse's world froze as he fixed his gaze on the stark message flashing on his phone. The all-too-familiar text from Sarah seared into his mind, a stark contrast to their usual light-hearted exchanges.
There's something we need to discuss. It's urgent.
He found himself at their go-to cafe, the quiet ambiance doing little to ease the tension. Sarah, usually vibrant, looked pale as she spoke with a courage that astounded him. And then the revelation hit, an unwelcome, unexpected diagnosis. 6 months, maybe a year with aggressive treatment. The words washed over him, impossible to fully comprehend. "I'm so sorry," Jessie whispered, reaching out to squeeze Sarah's hand. "What can I do? Anything you need? I'm here." Sarah managed a wan smile. "Actually, there is something." She took a deep breath. "I have a final wish. It's unconventional." Jessie leaned forward. "Name it. Whatever it is, consider it done." "I want to have the ultimate girls' day out with my best friend," Sarah said. "Shopping, mani-pedis, the works. Just one perfect day to forget about all of this." She gestured vaguely at herself. Jessie nodded slowly, then froze as the full implication of her words sank in. "Wait, you mean with me?" Sarah's eyes pleaded. "I know it's a lot to ask, but you're my closest friend, Jessie. There's no one else I'd rather do this with." 1,000 objections rose to Jessie's lips, but he swallowed them back. How could he possibly refuse her anything right now? "Of course," he heard himself say.
"Whatever you want, I'm in."
The relief and gratitude on Sarah's face made it worth it. Almost. The next few weeks passed in a blur of preparation. Jesse threw himself into it, partly out of dedication to Sarah and partly to avoid dwelling on the ticking clock hanging over their heads. He watched countless makeup tutorials, practiced walking in heels until his feet ached, and spent hours agonizing over what to wear. The night before their big day out, Jessie stood before the mirror, hardly recognizing the person staring back. Brown hair, normally short and messy, now fell in soft waves past his shoulders, thanks to expertly applied extensions. His face was transformed by subtle contouring and a swipe of mascara. And then there was the dress, a blue floral sundress that fluttered around his knees. "You can do this," Jesse muttered to his reflection. "For Sarah." The next morning dawned bright and clear. Jesse arrived at Sarah's apartment, teetering slightly on white heels. Sarah answered the door, her face lighting up. "Oh my God, look at you!" She pulled Jessie into a hug. "You look amazing!" "Thanks," Jessie said, blushing. "I'm not sure about the dress, though. Is it too much?" Sarah shook her head emphatically. "It's perfect. Although..." She studied Jessie critically. "Your makeup could use a little work. Come on, I'll help you touch it up." In Sarah's bathroom, she gently guided Jessie through the finer points of makeup application. "See, you want to blend the eyeshadow like this," she demonstrated. "And a little more blush. There. Now you're stunning." Jessie stared at the mirror, stunned by the transformation. The person looking back was undeniably feminine, with high cheekbones, full lips, and eyes that seemed larger and more expressive. "Wow," Jessie breathed. "I hardly recognize myself." Sarah squeezed his shoulder. You look beautiful, Sienna. Jessie blinked. Sienna? Just for today, Sarah said with a wink. Every girl needs a great name for a day out, right? A strange thrill went through Jessie at the sound of the name.
Sienna,
he repeated softly. I like it. Their first stop was a high-end boutique. Sarah insisted on trying on dozens of outfits, twirling and posing while Jessie, Sienna, offered opinions and encouragement. To Sienna's surprise, she found herself enjoying the process, admiring the way different fabrics draped and colors played off each other. Your turn, Sarah announced, thrusting a pile of clothes into Sienna's arms. These will look amazing on you. Sienna hesitated. I don't know. Come on, live a little. It's all part of the experience. Unable to resist Sarah's enthusiasm, Sienna allowed herself to be pushed into a dressing room. She emerged a few minutes later in a flowing maxi dress in a deep teal that complemented her blue sundress. Sarah clapped her hands in delight. Oh, you have to get that. It's so you! Sienna turned, admiring her reflection. The dress emphasized curves she hadn't realized she had, creating an elegant silhouette. You really think so?
Absolutely. Trust me, I have an eye for these things.
They left the boutique with several bags, Sienna marveling at how natural it felt to shop for women's clothing. Their next stop was a salon for manicures and pedicures. Sienna chose a pale pink polish that Sarah declared classic and feminine. As they sat with their feet soaking, Sarah leaned over conspiratorially.
So, how are you feeling about all this?
Sienna considered the question.
Honestly,
better than I expected. It's liberating, in a way, like I'm playing a character. Sarah nodded thoughtfully. And how does this character feel? Confident, Sienna said, surprising herself with the answer. Beautiful, like I could conquer the world in these heels. They shared a laugh, but there was an undercurrent of something deeper. Sarah squeezed Sienna's hand. I'm glad. You deserve to feel that way all the time, you know. The rest of the day passed in a whirlwind of activity. They had lunch at a trendy cafe, where Sienna found herself unconsciously mimicking Sarah's mannerisms. The way she crossed her legs, gestured with her hands, even the slight lilt in her voice. As the afternoon wore on, Sienna realized she had stopped constantly checking her reflection or worrying about how she looked. She was simply enjoying the day with her best friend, laughing and chatting as they window shopped and people watched. Their final stop was a rooftop bar with a stunning view of the city skyline. As they sipped fruity cocktails and watched the sun begin to set, Sarah turned to Sienna with a serious expression. Thank you for doing this, she said softly. It means more to me than you can know. Sienna felt a lump form in her throat. Of course. Anything for you, Sarah. Sarah shook her head. It's not just for me, though. I've seen how you've blossomed today. The way you carry yourself, the confidence in your eyes. It's like you've discovered a part of yourself you never knew existed. Sienna opened her mouth to protest, but the words died on her lips. Because Sarah was right. Throughout the day, she had felt more comfortable, more authentic than she ever had before. It was as if she had been wearing a mask her entire life without realizing it, and today was the first time she had taken it off. I don't know what to say, Sienna whispered. Sarah took her hand. You don't have to say anything. Just promise me you'll keep exploring this side of yourself. Life's too short to hide who you really are. Tears pricked at Sienna's eyes, threatening to ruin her carefully applied mascara. I promise. They hugged tightly, both aware of the unspoken weight of Sarah's illness hanging between them. But for now, in this moment, there was only warmth and understanding. As they made their way home, Sienna found herself reluctant for the day to end. The thought of taking off the dress, removing the makeup, and going back to being Jessie felt suffocating. At Sarah's door, they embraced one last time. "Remember your promise," Sarah murmured. Sienna nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. The walk home was a blur of conflicting emotions. By the time Sienna reached her apartment, she had made a decision. Instead of immediately changing back into Jessie's clothes, she carefully hung up the blue sundress and teal maxi dress. She removed her makeup with the gentle cleanser Sarah had recommended, marveling at how soft her skin felt. Standing before the mirror in a silky robe, Sienna studied her reflection. The makeup was gone, but something fundamental had shifted. The person looking back at her was neither fully Jessie nor the polished Sienna from earlier. This was someone in between, someone on a journey of self-discovery. With trembling hands, Sienna reached for her phone and pulled up a search engine. She hesitated for just a moment before typing. "How to start transitioning." The screen filled with results, overwhelming in their scope. But for the first time in her life, Sienna felt a sense of excitement about the future. She had a long road ahead, full of challenges and difficult conversations. But she also had Sarah's unwavering support and the memory of how it felt to truly be herself. Sienna took a deep breath, feeling as though she was standing on the edge of a great precipice. Then, with a smile, she dove in. The next few months were a whirlwind of change and growth. Sienna began hormone therapy, watching with a mixture of awe and trepidation as her body slowly transformed. She grew out her brown hair, reveling in the way it framed her increasingly feminine features. Each small change felt like a step closer to becoming her true self. Sarah was there every step of the way, offering advice, support, and a shoulder to cry on when things got tough. Despite her own declining health, she never failed to show up for Sienna's milestones. The first time she went out in public, fully presenting as female, her name change ceremony, even accompanying her to doctor's appointments. "I'm so proud of you," Sarah said one afternoon as they sat in her hospital room. She was having a good day, her eyes bright despite the pallor of her skin. "You've come so far." Sienna squeezed her hand. "I couldn't have done it without you. You gave me the courage to be myself." Sarah smiled weakly. "You always had the courage."
I just helped you find it.
As Sarah's condition worsened, Sienna found herself spending more and more time at the hospital. She would bring magazines and nail polish, recreating their girls' day out in the sterile hospital room. They would laugh and gossip, pretending for a few hours that everything was normal. One day, as Sienna was carefully applying a coat of coral polish to Sarah's nails, her friend spoke up softly. "Sienna, I need you to promise me something." Sienna looked up, her heart clenching at the seriousness in Sarah's tone. "Anything. Promise me you'll keep living your truth, even when I'm gone. Don't let anyone make you feel ashamed or less than. You're beautiful and strong, and the world needs more people like you in it." Tears welled up in Sienna's eyes. "I promise," she whispered. "I'll make you proud." Sarah squeezed her hand. "You already have." A week later, Sarah slipped away peacefully in her sleep. Sienna was by her side, holding her hand until the very end. The loss was devastating, leaving a hole in Sienna's life that she wasn't sure could ever be filled. In the days following Sarah's death, Sienna found herself lost in grief and uncertainty. Without her friends' unwavering support, doubts began to creep in. Was she strong enough to continue on this path alone? The morning of Sarah's funeral dawned gray and overcast, matching Sienna's mood. She stood before her closet, staring at the row of dresses and blouses she had accumulated over the past few months. Her hand hesitated over a somber black dress, then drifted to the blue floral sundress, the one she had worn on that first transformative day out with Sarah. With sudden clarity, Sienna knew what she had to do. She pulled on the sundress, paired it with the white heels from that day, and carefully applied her makeup. As she looked in the mirror, she saw not just herself, but a reflection of Sarah's love and support. At the funeral, Sienna stood tall and proud, ignoring the whispers and stares from those who hadn't yet adjusted to her transition. She focused instead on the warmth and acceptance from Sarah's family, who embraced her as one of their own. When it came time for Sienna to speak, she approached the podium with steady steps. She took a deep breath, looking out over the sea of faces. "Sarah was more than my best friend," Sienna began, her voice clear and strong. "She was my guiding light, my cheerleader, and the person who helped me find the courage to be my true self. She taught me that life is too precious and too short to live it for anyone else's expectations." Sienna's voice broke slightly, but she pushed on. "In her final months, Sarah showed me what true strength looks like. She faced her illness with grace and humor, always more concerned about those around her than herself. And even as she fought her own battles, she gave me the greatest gift of all, the freedom to be who I've always been inside." Tears flowed freely down Sienna's cheeks now, but she didn't bother to wipe them away. "I stand before you today as my authentic self because of Sarah's love and encouragement, and I promise to honor her memory by living my life with the same courage, kindness, and zest for life that she embodied." As Sienna stepped down from the podium, she felt a weight lift from her shoulders. She had kept her promise to Sarah, to live her truth openly and proudly, and in doing so, she had found a strength she never knew she possessed. In the months that followed, Sienna threw herself into LGBTQ+ advocacy, determined to help others find the same acceptance and support that Sarah had given her. She started a support group for transgender individuals in her community, creating a safe space for people to share their struggles and triumphs. 1 year to the day after that first Girls' Day Out, Sienna stood before a crowd at a transgender visibility event. She wore the teal maxi dress she and Sarah had picked out together, her brown hair flowing in soft waves around her shoulders. "A year ago," Sienna began, her voice strong and clear, "I was living a life that wasn't mine. I was hiding behind a mask, afraid to show the world who I really was. But thanks to the love and support of an incredible friend, I found the courage to be my authentic self." She paused, looking out over the sea of faces, some uncertain, some hopeful, all listening intently. "I stand before you today, not just as a woman, but as a person who has discovered the incredible freedom that comes with living your truth. It hasn't been an easy journey, but it has been the most rewarding one of my life." Sienna's voice softened as she continued. "To those of you who are just beginning this journey, or who are still afraid to take that first step, I want you to know that you are not alone. There is a community here ready to support you, to lift you up, and to celebrate every victory, no matter how small." She smiled, feeling Sarah's presence with her in that moment. My friend Sarah once told me that life is too short to hide who you really are. So I challenge each of you to find the courage to be your authentic selves. The world needs your light, your truth, your unique perspective. Don't let fear hold you back from living the life you deserve. As applause filled the room, Sienna felt a sense of peace wash over her. She had come so far from that uncertain person who had reluctantly agreed to a girls' day out. The journey hadn't been easy, and there were still challenges ahead, but with every step, she was becoming more fully herself. Later that night, Sienna stood on her balcony, looking out over the city lights. She thought about Sarah, about that pivotal day that had changed everything, about the long and sometimes difficult road that had led her to this moment. "Thank you," she whispered to the night sky, imagining Sarah could hear her. "For everything." A warm breeze caressed her face, and for a moment, Sienna could almost feel Sarah's presence beside her. She smiled, knowing that wherever her journey took her next, she would always carry Sarah's love and support with her. Sienna turned back to her apartment, ready to face whatever challenges tomorrow might bring. She was no longer hiding, no longer pretending. She was simply, beautifully, authentically, herself. And that, she knew, was the greatest tribute she could offer to Sarah's memory. As she prepared for bed, Sienna caught sight of herself in the mirror. The person looking back at her was confident, strong, and utterly at peace with who she was. It was a far cry from the uncertain Jessie who had stood in this same spot a year ago, terrified of what the future might hold. Sienna traced her fingers along the soft fabric of the blue floral sundress hanging in her closet, a cherished reminder of where her journey had begun. She thought about how far she had come, not just in her physical transformation, but in her emotional and spiritual growth as well. There were still hurdles to overcome, of course. Not everyone in her life had been as accepting as Sarah. There were family members who struggled to understand, colleagues who whispered behind her back, strangers who stared or made hurtful comments. But Sienna found that with each passing day, she grew stronger in her conviction and more comfortable in her own skin. She thought about the support group she had started, about the scared and hopeful faces she saw at each meeting. Sienna remembered how it felt to be in their shoes, to be taking those first tentative steps towards authenticity. It filled her with a sense of purpose to be able to offer the same kind of support and encouragement that Sarah had given her. As she climbed into bed, Sienna's mind drifted to the future. There were still so many experiences ahead of her, dating as her true self, navigating the complexities of long-term hormone therapy, perhaps even considering gender confirmation surgery one day. The path ahead was not always clear, but for the first time in her life, Sienna felt excited about the journey. She reached for her journal, a habit Sarah had encouraged her to start early in her transition. Sienna flipped through the pages, smiling at the record of her progress. There were entries full of doubt and fear, but also moments of joy and triumph. It was a testament to how far she had come. On a fresh page, Sienna began to write. "Dear Sarah, it's been a year since that day that changed everything. Sometimes I still can't believe how much has happened, how much I've changed. I wish you could see me now. I think you'd be proud. I spoke at an event today, can you believe it? Me, standing in front of all those people, telling my story. Our story, really, because I wouldn't be here without you. I wore the teal dress we picked out together. It felt like you were there with me. I still miss you every day. There are so many times I want to call you, to share a triumph or ask for advice. But in a way, I feel like you're always with me. Every time I face a challenge, I can hear your voice encouraging me. Every time I doubt myself, I remember your unwavering belief in me. You gave me the greatest gift, Sarah. You helped me find the courage to be myself. And I promise, I'm going to keep living that truth every single day. Thank you for being my best friend, my support, my guiding light. I love you, and I'm carrying your spirit with me always. Love, Sienna. As she closed the journal, Sienna felt a sense of peace wash over her. The road ahead might not always be easy, but she was ready to face whatever came her way. She was Sienna now, strong, authentic, and finally, truly herself. She drifted off to sleep with a smile on her face, dreaming of blue dresses and the endless possibilities that lay ahead.
Thanks for watching, my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!